Hey, what's up YouTube? This is J Dreamer Z. This is my first post, so I'm kind of experimenting, but today I'm going to talk about the Colorado State Seal and how this seal is related directly to a promise that was made by the quote-unquote fallen angels, alien beings, whatever you want to call them, that came to this planet and decided to rule over us a long time ago. Let's start with the seal itself, okay? We've got the circle around the outside edge. We've got 3 stars on each side of the circle. What do stars have anything to do with the country or the state? Nothing, really. Stars symbolically almost always represent either space or beings from space or beings from the heavens. Let's just start with the top and work our way down. One of my areas of my specialties that I like to dive into is symbolism, hieroglyphics, words, logos, and things of that nature. I believe these things were chosen specifically and that they were written in order to be read from the top on down as a message to those who know. So, what does the message say? Each character builds context for the characters that surround it, just like in a sentence or a message. So what does this hieroglyph tell us? Let's start at the top down. First thing we see is the all-seeing eye in the triangle. The triangle symbolizes male energy when it's pointing up. Okay? Keep that in mind. Just keep all these things in mind. We'll build the context as we go. Around the triangle, okay, around this very male energy, are beams of light. And beams of light can symbolize illumination. It can symbolize understanding. It can symbolize knowledge. It can symbolize literal light. Inside of the triangle, we have one eye, the quote-unquote all-seeing eye. An eye that is within this delta shape. Now I'll go a little bit further into the delta shape. In Egyptian hieroglyphics, from what I understand, this delta shape represented the vessel of the gods. Okay, so you have this all-seeing eye, this watcher eye, watching everything, with these rays of illumination, with so much knowledge or so much understanding or light emanating from it. Next, you have these groups of sticks, like a bundle of staffs. They're not really sticks, they're staffs. And from my count, there's 12 staffs with a 13th staff in between them. The 13th being the handle of an axe. Now the bandages that are wrapped around this bundle are clearly in Roman numerals. X1X. And in Roman numerals, X1X is the Roman numeral 19. That's important. I'll come back to the number 19 in a little bit. Now, I didn't draw it on here because you wouldn't be able to see it, but you can look it up. There's Latin words in these Roman numerals. The first one says unit, the middle one says uni, and the last one says constitution. Constitution. So unit, uni, constitution, which from my translation, my understanding of it,
basically means unit is where we get our word unit, right? Oneness or togetherness. Uni essentially means with. Constitution essentially means a purpose or a plan. Now keep that word in mind, plan. So there's a reason why these words were chosen to be put in these symbols. The X, the 1, the X, number 19, 12 staffs, and an axe in the middle. Now these 12 staffs, from my research, traditionally a staff symbolizes leadership. Okay? So we have 12 leaders that are bundled together, and in the middle is this axe. Now they could have had the axe pointing down, but they chose to make the axe pointing up, just like the triangle or the delta. So we have a group of leadership bundled together with a threat of separation or a threat of death, which is essentially what the axe symbolizes. Separation, cutting off, death, things of that nature. We've got the Roman numeral 19, and we've got, so far, an X and an X. Okay? So let's move down a little bit. Now we have this symbol, which at first looks like a shield, right? We see this shield symbol a lot everywhere. Well, shields don't look like that, okay? That's not practical for fighting or defense. Shields are pretty much round for the most part. Ones I've seen have been round, but they don't look like this, okay? That is not a shield. This, as you can see, is split down the middle. That's because it's two completely different symbols. The top symbol is a crown. You can see it now, right? There's the points of the crown. Now there's 3 points of the crown. That's important. And underneath the crown is a half circle. Well, what is typically worn underneath the crown? The face, right? So let's talk about the crown first. Inside of the crown, which the crown represents ruling party, dictatorship, tyranny, right? Inside of the crown, we have the symbols for the earth, which are the 3 peaks of the mountains, and the sky, which are the 3 clouds. There's the number 3 again. So something is basically indicating the ruling of the earth and the sky. Okay? Let's go to the next one, the face. Within this half circle, this face, we have 2 objects. Okay? We have a sickle, right, which is sort of this kind of a shape, a crescent, and we have a hammer. It's tied into Saturn symbolism and some other things. But as you can see, they make a third shape or a third symbol, which is another X, right? So now we have 1, 2, 3 X's on this message. So what do we think of when we see 3 X's in a row? Well, I'll tell you. We think of things that are off limits. We think of things that are for the initiated or the approved only. You look at the old cartoons where they have jugs of moonshine. There's 3 X's on those jugs. That means you have to be an adult to drink this. You have to be approved to drink it. You see on pornography, there's XXX. That doesn't mean you can't look at it or you can't own it. It means you must be approved to own it. But it basically means this is for a particular party's eyes only. Okay? This is not for everybody.
Alright, so anyways, some symbolism hidden in there. Now if we go to the actual tools, we have this this pickaxe. The pickaxe represents manual labor. If you have a pickaxe, you're mining for gold or precious metals. That's manual labor. That's tough work, okay? Hard work. Then we have the hammer. Now the hammer represents essentially building, okay? Carpentry. You're building houses. You're building They chose to put the symbols for building and manual labor in the part of the face which is human, okay? The human part. The crown part with these horns on top represents ruling, right? The human part represents hard work and building temples, houses, etc., etc. Okay? We might say slavery. So let's go to the next thing. We've got this ribbon at the bottom. Now the ribbon says nil sine numine. I know it's backwards because I'm on the webcam, but in Latin, and these things are always written in Latin, and the reason why is because Latin is known as a dead language. It's not Latin a dead language. Latin is used all over the place by secret societies and products of the Illuminati. They use it as a language to communicate with one another because nobody speaks Latin, right? Well, anyways, let's break this down. Nil. Well, if you've ever played cards, you know what nil means. It means nothing. It means nada, right? Sine means without. I think it's where the word sin might come from. I'm not sure, but it basically means without, okay? And then numine. Numine has been translated by many people to mean providence or divinity. But a more literal, ancient interpretation of the word numine means permission from the stars, or permission from those from the stars, the quote-unquote gods or angels. Okay? So this literally says in Latin, nothing without permission from the angels, or from the gods, from the aliens, however you want to say it, okay? To me, it's very similar. Now notice on this ribbon, the ends of it. Every time I see a ribbon, I haven't seen too many that look like little snake tongues on the ends. Maybe they have them like that, but they didn't have to draw it like that. Everything that these people do is done exact and perfectly and for a very particular purpose and for a reason, okay? They know it looks like a snake's tongue on both sides. They know this is one of their credos or mottos, so it is being spoken, okay, by this serpent tongue. You might say it's a stretch, but this is what I see, okay? But let's put together the message, okay? The eye is the eye of the watcher. Or, because there are many rays, right, the watchers. The watchers were the old race of beings that were at this planet on some point in time to watch over, I'm using quotes a lot, to watch over mankind. We have something that is bound together, okay? The staffs represent leadership. Leaders are bound together, right? We have a number 19 in Roman numerals, and we have the threat of death going within this little bundle, okay? This axe is the threat of death. Then we have this crown that implies to rule over the earth and the sky. And we have this human face, which is under the crown, so the crown rules over the human face, okay? And the human symbols are those of slavery, hard work, masonry. Nothing without permission from the angels, the aliens, whatever you want to call it, okay? Now, I'm going to pick my phone up and I'm going to read to you a quote that is from the ancient book of Enoch. I believe it's chapter 7. But let me read this to you. Enoch chapter 7. It happened after the sons of men had multiplied in those days that daughters were born to them, elegant and beautiful. And when the angels, aliens, angels, the sons of heaven beheld them, they became enamored of them, saying to each other, "Come, let us select for ourselves wives from the progeny of men, and let us beget children." Then their leader, Samyaza, said to them, "I fear that you may perhaps be indisposed to the performance of this enterprise, and that I alone shall suffer for so grievous of a crime." But they all answered him and said, "We all swear and bind ourselves by mutual execrations," that means hatred, "that we will not change our intention, but execute our projected undertaking." Then they all swore together and all bound themselves by mutual execration. Now, it goes on in verse 9. You could look this up. I'm not going to read it all, but verse 9, chapter 7, the book of Enoch, lists the names of the leaders who are these beings who are making this pact to do something that they know they're not supposed to do. Okay? In this particular version of the book of Enoch, it lists 18 names of these leaders. And then it goes on in the very next chapter to talk about one of these higher up leaders who wasn't in that list. His name is Azazel, or Azazel. He goes on to be talked about in the next couple chapters, and they're basically saying he's a really, really bad guy. Okay? Not just these 18 other fallen beings who made this oath, but Azazel basically brought a whole bunch of really bad stuff to this planet. Alright? Now, if you take the 18 leaders of these angels and you include Azazel, you now have the number 19 for 19 of these leading fallen beings. But there's also another version of this text that includes one more name in that 18 list. Okay? So you could include Azazel, you could not. Either way, I'm seeing the number 19 pop up an awful lot when it comes to these fallen angels. Now here's an interesting fact. While I was doing research for this post, I came across the number 19 on the internet, and it's talked about in the Quran. But the Quran supposedly also mentions that there are 19 angels that guard hell. So anyways, just looking at the number 19, obviously there's the Roman numeral 19, X1X, right? And then this is really interesting. If you add the letters in state of Colorado, and then you add the 4 characters of the date at the bottom, 1876, you have 19. Okay, might be a coincidence, right? But check this out. If you add, remember how I said there's Latin words in the Roman numerals? Unit, uni, constitution. Write that down, and you'll find that unit, uni, constitution, if you add all those letters, it happens to be 19 letters. Interesting, right? So, you've got your state seal of Colorado here. I'm telling you, it seems like there's strong evidence, based on my research, that this is not just a symbol. It doesn't have random symbols inside of it. This is literally a hieroglyphic reminder, okay, from one being to another. We're in this together, and we better not mess it up. We better keep it XXX a secret. Otherwise, we are under the threat of death by those who watch over us, right? We keep this promise, and we will rule over the heavens and the earth. And mankind will be our slaves. They will do the hard work for us. They will build houses, right, for us. We've got reptilian tongues, horns. That's a whole nother topic. Okay, I'm not going to go into reptilians or anything. I don't want to scare everybody away. I'm also not going to talk about Saturn right now. Alright? That is a huge one, so stay tuned, alright? Anyways, there you have it. State Seal of Colorado. The promise in the book of Enoch, given word for word, okay, that they would bind themselves together by their mutual hatred under the penalty of death, right, to rule over mankind, alright, and nothing shall be done without their permission. It's a reminder. It's from the book of Enoch. It's right here in the Colorado State Seal. Everybody knows Colorado has all kinds of Illuminati connections, secret society stuff going on. There's a million other things that we could talk about, and we will. So, I'm Jay Dreamers. If you like what you heard, then subscribe, or just hit like, or share it. Stay tuned. I promise to bring some more crazy, interesting stuff to help us all start thinking outside of the box.